Now it's time to hear the stories of Utes in their own words. This is Utes Insider presented by Pepsi. Here's your host, Mike Lageschulte.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the show. Great to have you with us for another edition of Utes Insider. I'm Mike Lageschulte. Well, as we work our way through the month of March, it's so much fun to see champions being crowned in college athletics. It was a year ago this time that COVID-19 shut down everything. In fact, the Utah ski team was 2 days into a 4-day national championship event. They were called off the course with the lead. They would have won their 14th national title. It did not happen, but they had a chance to get back this year to New Hampshire, and this time they finished the job. The Utah ski team winning its 14th national championship, 13th NCAA title last week as they took down Colorado by 31.5 points. A pretty dominant performance, and the Alpine squad had some good performances. They had the Utah team overall, 16 All-Americans, 9 podium finishes, but the Nordic team, especially in the women's side, was dominant and really was the driving force behind that title run. In fact, the women's team took 5 of 6 podium spots in the 2 races and had a total of 197 of Utah's 554 points last week, and they were led by freshman and Park City native Sydney Palmer-Legger. She won both the women's 5K Classic and then the women's 15K Freestyle. In fact, her second race, she won by 24 seconds. It was just the 12th time a Ute has won 2 races at the national championships. She's been with the U.S. Junior Worlds team as well. Really a rising star in Nordic skiing. We'll talk to her coming up next. Park City native Sydney Palmer-Legger coming up next on Utes Insider.
To hear more episodes of this show and other Utah athletics podcasts, search for them on iTunes, Spotify, and YouTube. Now, back to more of Utes Insider presented by Pepsi.
And welcome back to the show, brought to you today by University of Utah Health with 16 convenient neighborhood health centers. We have a game plan for your family's health. Visit uvuhealth.org today. Well, I'm pleased to be joined now by not just a one-time, but a 2-time NCAA champion, Sydney Palmer-Legger of the Utah ski team, who was crowned the champion last week in both the women's 5K and 15K at the national championships. Sydney, thanks for joining us on Utes Insider.
Hi, thank you for having me.
What a week you had, and I've got a lot of questions about last week and your background. Let's start with kind of the topic of the moment. Last week, the Utah ski team, after being pulled off the mountain last year, midway through the championships, got a chance to finish the job this time around in 2021. I know you weren't a part of it last year because you're a freshman, but to win a national championship with your team and for you to play such a big part, you've had almost a week to kind of let this whole thing sink in. It's a huge deal. Can you put into words what it's meant for you to be a 2-time national champion yourself and also to help the Utes win a national title last week?
Yeah, it was a pretty incredible week. I went into the races just wanting to do well because a couple weeks before NCAA's, we were in Finland for World Juniors and we weren't able to race because we got put into quarantine. And so I was just happy to be out there racing and wasn't sure what to expect. So then I won my first national championship and I was like super excited and shocked that it happened. And then I won the second, which skate has like not been going super well this season. So that was, I was not expecting it. And then as a team, getting the national championship was pretty incredible. We were pretty close with Colorado. So it was just down to the last races. And everyone was so excited and we were all like cheering and screaming after the races and running and watching the boys. Yeah.
Pretty cool stuff. And I mean, our Nordic team this year for Utah has been so dominant. I don't think there's any question you guys are going to perform well, but to have as many athletes on the podium as Utah had last week, I mean, you guys, I think took 5 of 6 podium spots between the 2 races for the women's team. That's a dominant performance. Did you guys think you would perform, as good as your year's been? Did you think it would be that dominant at nationals?
I don't think we thought we would sweep the podium the first day. We definitely thought we were going to do well because like the whole season, literally all of the racers, like all of the Utah girls have been top 10. And we've been pushing each other in training super well. But then when that happened and then when the boys placed 2nd, 3rd, and 5th, I think everyone was a bit shocked.
Yeah. That's pretty awesome. I mean, you guys, like I said, weren't just good. You were dominant good. And really, the Alpine group is good, but the Nordic group have been the strength of this team all year. Visiting with Sydney Palmer-Legger, 2-time national champion last week at the NCAA Skiing Championships. Sydney, let's talk about sort of the conditions last week. I know that the temperature and the variations and whether there's sun or not can really impact your waxing techniques. And there's a lot that goes into being successful in Nordic skiing, not just being good in terms of being prepared and in the proper condition and your race strategy. So let's talk about conditions in terms of where you would like them to be and where they were last week. How'd you feel about things with the weather and temperatures and waxing?
The weather was definitely a little weird. So the first day, it was really hot. It was kind of like slushy-ish. So we were racing in like shorts and a t-shirt.
Yeah.
And kind of worried about like overheating. After our race, we poured like water all over ourselves because it was just so hot.
Yeah.
Definitely got a little sunburnt. And then it cooled down this next day. We didn't have a race that day. And then it was definitely colder for the skate day, which was nice, but it was like icy. Yeah.
So a little bit different, it sounds like, both days. In terms of your strategy, everyone goes into a race with this idea of I want to get out quick or someone to hold back. In terms of your strategy going in and how it played out both days, how did it work out for you?
It worked pretty well. The first day, my strategy, because it was only a 5K.
Right.
So it's basically just like a long sprint for us. So if I go hard from the start and just try not to like back off at all, and there's not a lot of rest on this course, like any long downhills. So it's just kind of tell myself to push through the pain and that my legs are going to hurt, but it's only like a couple minutes before I get a little rest. And it's only like, it was like 15-minute race. So it was like, okay, if I push a couple minutes here, then I can make up this time. And we were like getting splits from the coaches. So like I knew how close everyone else was to me. And then for the 15K, I just went out kind of conservative because we had 3 laps. And then the last lap, I tried to just give it my best.
Yeah.
Which was definitely hard. I was a little scared to see how like my body would feel because I've had problems with my legs cramping in the past. But it worked pretty well and I felt amazing. And as you can tell, like, I got 2 championships. So yeah, it worked pretty well.
Yeah, I'd say it worked pretty well for you.
Yeah.
You mentioned it was so warm the first day. Again, just 5Ks the first day, but to have a race, to win that, and obviously you got to sell out to get that first one. You have a day in between race days. So going into day 2, knowing it was a 15K and it was warm the first day, how'd your body feel? Did you feel like that morning, you know what, I've recovered pretty well? Did you feel good about where you were physically going into day number 2?
Yeah, I felt pretty good. I was definitely a little tired. Our day in between, we just went for like a really easy ski. But after all season of racing quite a bit and training a lot, my body was definitely feeling it a little bit. So I just had to make sure that I was properly recovered the day between, and then just like not worrying about how my body feels that morning of the race because it's going to be a little fatigued and you just got to push through it.
What a great story. Again, 2-time national champion, Sydney Palmer-Legger of the Utah ski team. She won both the women's 5K Classic and 15K Freestyle in the women's classification last week. You mentioned the style of racing in the 5K Classic and the 15K Freestyle. Which one do you prefer over the other, or do you not have a preference?
I don't really have a preference. I like longer distance classic.
Okay.
But I just love racing in general, and it's just fun having the adrenaline going through your body and like usually having spectators, not this year, but yeah, just lining up with everybody and then like the feeling before you go off and just like pushing your body so hard that like you can't really do anything after your race. Yeah.
Great stuff again last week for you. Let's talk about your background, Sydney. You grew up in Park City, lived there your whole life. I know you were in Sun Valley, Idaho for 3 years to train there, but let's talk about how you got into Nordic skiing. I mean, you live in Utah. There's a lot of places to go, and was it family that got you into it, or was it an interest of your own? How'd you get started with Nordic skiing?
Yeah, so I have been Nordic skiing since basically I could walk. Being in Utah, there's a lot of teams and like club teams and a lot of skiing. And so my parents did it for fun and my older brother. And so I just wanted to like follow in his footsteps and do it. So we joined Park City ski team and then Tuna a couple of years later. And it was just like for fun at first. And I just enjoyed skiing with other kids and playing games. And then when I was around 11, I started competing more like at bigger races. And that was when I like fell in love with racing. And I 2 years ago, I switched from mountain biking and skiing to just skiing because I just wanted to focus on trying to make this U.S. ski team and get on a good college team and hopefully make some World Cups.
That worked out pretty well for you. At what point did Utah come on your radar for skiing? You know, some kids grow up in the state, they want to go someplace else for college, but in terms of collegiate skiing, Utah's about as good as it gets. I mean, Utah's now won national championships in 17, 19, and 21. They would have won last year had they been able to finish, but it's been a very good program, especially in the Nordic side as of late. At what point did you lock in on Utah and say, that's where I'm going to college?
Yeah, so when I was first looking at colleges, I actually did not want to go to Utah because of that same reason, just being, I'm 20, 30 minutes from where I grew up. But then I like talked to Miles and Frederick and they are such good coaches. And it made me realize that like Salt Lake is different from Park City. And, I can't turn down an offer of racing for like the best college basically in the country. And this team is incredible. And there's so many fast girls and guys, and I'm going to like learn a lot from them. And definitely have seen that this year that Miles and Frederick aren't afraid to hold back and do a lot of hard training and workouts. And I think as a team, we're faster overall with them.
I'll talk to you about your teammates in just a moment, but I want to get more into your competitive background pre-college. So you were a member of the U.S. relay team alongside another freshman, Novi McCabe, and you guys were second at the Junior World Ski Championships in Germany recently. You also had a couple of top 25 finishes at the 2019 World Junior Championships in Finland. So you had a really good career before you came to Utah. How much did that international experience at that high level help you get through this freshman season and eventually win 2 championships at the national level?
Yeah, it's helped a lot. When we raced the relay in Germany, you have to be pretty tough over there. They're not afraid to get tough, put some elbows out. So you kind of just got to like go for it and not be afraid to kind of not cut people off, but get in their space a little bit. Because you won't make moves unless you are a little pushy. And then this year, it's been a lot of like individual racing. So kind of just having to mentally push yourself. So I guess just racing over in Europe just gives you a lot of experience, like no matter what, just racing in general.
Well, it certainly all worked out for you again. You won a pair of national championships last week at the NCAAs. You mentioned Frederick Landstedt and the job he's done with the ski program since coming aboard from New Mexico, and Miles Havlick, who had a great career himself as a collegian. Just talk a little bit more in depth about what those two have done for you this first year as a collegiate skier at Utah and how they've helped you develop.
Yeah, they are an amazing group of coaches. They spend so much time making sure that we had, the right skis, making sure we were mentally okay, like making sure our training was going well. They spent their whole lives and like all of their days just making sure that like we have what we need. And if I like call them, they're always there to pick up. And I'm so excited to like be on this team because they're definitely going to make us a lot faster.
You mentioned your teammates. Julia Richter was the national champion in Nordic as a freshman back in 2019. She had a very good year this year as well. Just didn't perform or had the results you did at nationals, but still has had a very good career. How much did someone like that help you get through this freshman season and do as well as you did?
Yeah, it's not just Julia too. We have our whole team. Any day someone could, be winning just like I did. At all of our college races, all the girls were like top 10. So I think just like training with them, you can learn anything from them, if like technique or like how they race or like how they go into racing. And I think usually for racing, for me, I get a little stressed out. And so having this group of girls, they help me just to like breathe and like enjoy the sport and enjoy like this process of like my skiing career and being in college skiing, because it's definitely a lot of fun, and you gotta like step back a little bit when you have bad races and look at the big picture that like you have this incredible team and like doing really well, and like one bad race is not going to like end your season. Yeah.
You know, I've spent a lot of time covering gymnastics at Utah, and I've talked to a lot of elite performers in that sport, and they say, listen, before college, you're all about yourself. I mean, you're trying to make a national team or win this competition. And skiing seems like kind of the same way, where really it's an individual sport. And then you come to college, and then, yes, you compete on your own to win championships and become an All-American, but you also have this team aspect that can really sort of change your focus on what you're doing. And just to have that support, as you said, is so important. It can really, you know, just change your energy level. How much did you enjoy being part of a team at the college level this past year?
I've loved it. Yeah. Like what you said, I used to train a lot by myself, in the past. And this year I've just been able to train with all the girls and some of the guys, on our long skis. And I have just enjoyed this sport so much more, and just, really taken, not advantage over like what we have at Utah.
Well, very good. Visiting with Sydney Palmer-Legger, a two-time national champion. Today's show being brought to you by Pepsi. Grab a Pepsi and some friends and get in the game. Pepsi, proud partner of University of Utah Athletics. Sydney, before I let you go, a few more questions as we crown you, again, two-time national champion last week at NCAA's as Utah won the national title for the 14th time in the program's history. You know, COVID-19 has been such a tough thing for everyone to deal with, athletes, coaches, staff members, but you know, in skiing, you mentioned the coaches did a great job making sure you had the proper skis, what you needed to train. You guys can really get a lot done on your own, and plus you're outdoors. So COVID-19 obviously impacted the things a lot, but how much, you know, did it impact you? It would seem like in your sport, you probably were in better shape than most athletes in terms of getting in consistent training this past 12 months.
Yeah, it definitely impacted our racing. We were able to train a lot this fall, even with COVID, because we basically have a little bubble of our ski team.
Yeah.
But then Novi and I went to go race over in Europe for World Juniors, and we were close contacted by sitting kind of close to someone who tested positive on a bus. So we were not able to race. So we were basically in quarantine for the 14 days we were there.
Wow.
That definitely was like really hard and difficult, to like watch all these races happen and like know that we could have done really well, but like not able to race. And we like got tested every single day and had like a stack of negative papers. But you know, it's an experience we learned from, and then we were able to come back here, train, and then race really well at NCAA's. And then now we have one more race this next weekend, and then our season's done. So I think even though we missed out on racing at World Juniors, we have had an incredible college season.
You know, Frederick, your head coach, talked to our staff this past week, and he said, you know, we knew we had a good team, but as you talked about, the possibility of testing positive for COVID-19 and contact tracing and having to be quarantined. He said it was stressful because we knew we had the team good enough to win nationals, but making sure everyone passed their test. Were you guys a little anxious about, hey, we're right there, we got to be smart, we got to be safe? How did you guys sort of approach that whole thing with the testing and sort of the fear factor of not being able to race? How'd you handle that last week?
Yeah, I think testing in general, every time we test, there's always like an underlying stress that it could come out positive. We are very safe as a team. We only like hang around each other. And the only time we could get COVID is like, you know, going to a grocery store or like hanging out with like a family member that somehow gets it. But there's always stress that like you are feeling fine, asymptomatic, but still could have it.
Right.
And once we got to New Hampshire, we tested 4 times. And there was like, the stress of like, well, did we pick it up on the airport, like in the plane? But we all made it out safe and we're able to race. So I'm super thankful that we're all healthy.
Yeah, worked out great. Again, you guys were the national champions last week by a significant margin over Colorado, the second place team. One more question about your team. I mean, you have teammates from Norway, Germany, all over the U.S. I know with COVID-19, it sometimes could make some things challenging in terms of just your normal hangout time to bond as teammates, and it hasn't been the same. But in terms of this team coming together, do you feel like this group is bonded, and how have you been able to navigate the COVID-19 pandemic in an effort to be closer as teammates and really have that cohesiveness you need to be successful?
Yeah, I think we've really bonded well this year. Like even with COVID, I think we can only be as a team. So you're kind of like forced to hang out a lot with just the same kind of people.
Yeah.
And so like Novi and I coming in as freshmen, I think it was kind of perfect because then we got to get close with our teammates. And so going on trips, you're just with them and you're not able to like talk to other teams really. And so you're forced to get close and trust them and take advantage of the time you're with them.
Yeah. Well, you guys had a great year again, national champions. You won a pair yourself. What are your future plans? You mentioned you've got a big race coming up here in the next week or so. You're just a freshman. Do you have a major at this point? And what are your future goals? And any thoughts of trying to make an Olympic team down the road at some point?
Yeah, for sure. So we have our last kind of fun race in Sun Valley this weekend, and then we'll be done with our season. But I think next year, my plan is, race college, hopefully make some World Cups because I also got to start at a World Cup this year, but those were canceled. So hopefully be able to do one of those. And then maybe Olympics. I'm not exactly sure. We have such a strong U.S. team of girls. So I think it's going to be challenging to make the team, but it's not impossible. And then hopefully, NCAAs, all that kind of stuff.
Well, good luck to you with everything. As I mentioned, just to win one national championship is huge during your college career. To come as a freshman and sweep both the 5K and 15K, that's a huge week. And you helped the Utes get that 14th national championship in program's history. Sydney Palmer-Legger joining us on Utes Insider. Sydney, good luck down the road, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you. All
right, back to wrap things up in just a moment.
For more on Utah athletics, including up-to-date schedules and ticket information, log on to utahutes.com. Now back to more of Utes Insider presented by Pepsi.
And thank you once again to Sydney Palmer-Legger, a 2-time NCAA champion at the 2021 National Championships for the Utah ski team, which took down Colorado to win the 14th championship in school history. So happy for that group. So happy for Frederick Landstedt. Again, his team was 2 days into a title run last year, was pulled off the course. And as it's been, though, he's won national championships now in 19 and 21 at Utah. He also was a national championship coach at New Mexico and Colorado before coming to Utah. And what a job, Frederick, as well as Nordic coach Miles Havlick, who was a 2-time NCAA champion himself with the Utes back in his skiing career. Great job by them and a dominant performance by Utah skiing at the national championships last week. My thanks to Mike Gilliland on the technical side. That will do it for our show. Thanks for joining us. I'm Mike Lageschulte. Until next time, so long, everybody.
This has been Utes Insider presented by Pepsi. To hear more episodes of this show and other Utah athletics podcasts, search for them on iTunes, Spotify, and YouTube.